Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another live community classroom with Michaels. Today we have the lovely Mary Beth Temple to teach us how to make the adventurous beginner knit beanie, knit hat, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. We're going to be using the brand new Caron Big Donut Ogo. My name is Renee L. from Yarn Inspirations. I'll be helping with any questions you might have during today's class. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that Mary Beth answers them. While we're getting started and getting ready to kick things off, let us know where you're watching from. I'm going to pass it over to you, Miss Mary Beth.
All right. Welcome back here to Michael's. It's been a minute since I've been here, so I'm excited to show you this. Now, this is a very simple to knit beanie, but there's some tips and tricks that I can teach you to make it a little easier. So let's go over to the tabletop and start with our Ogo yarn. Let me just adjust this light 1 second, you guys. Put a little light on the subject, as my father used to say. There we go. So I don't want to spend the whole class going on and on about the Ogo, even though it's super cool. But since it is a new put up for us, it is new to a lot of people. So I'm very quickly going to open this one. This is not the right color. This is not the one I'm actually going to use, but it's one I had that I hadn't already prepared. And then much like Julia Child taking a completed turkey out of the oven, we're going to switch over to a hat that I already have in progress. So to use my Ogos, I'm going to split it right here. You can hear it pulling apart because there's some double stick tape in there. And you can get rid of that cardboard. You're not going to need it. So you're going to look for the thin spot where it joins and split it up. So you can see in here, right by my finger, there's a little, like a little knob. I like to hold on to that because I have learned from experience that if I don't have a good grip on it, sometimes it's a little hard to find. It sort of retracts. So I'm going to clip this little plastic string. I'm going to clip it next to that big part that I have the hold on. Clip, and then I'm going to pull it straight out. So I'm going to work from the outside of the skein. And for this particular beanie, we have patterns. We have 100 of plus patterns on yarnspirations.com for you to use these Ogos. Sometimes you start at one end and you knit or crochet all the way to the other end and you let the color changes happen as they happen. But for this particular project and some of our others, you split the colors. And so I just want to show you, again, I have one prepared that we're going to show on camera, but I just want to show you what that looks like real quick. So you're just kind of going to get your fingers in there and pull the colors apart. And when you find the part in the yarn where the color changes, so if you look right here, I have blue on this side and I have my tan on the other side. You're going to grab those scissors and just trim it right there. So you're going to do that all the way around. Now on this pattern, and again, many of the others where we forcibly change colors, that sounds a little aggressive, but you know what I mean, change colors when we want to, as opposed to just letting it happen as we go. It'll tell you A, B, C, D, E, so that you know which color is which letter, and those letters are going to correspond to the pattern. So what I have done, let me get this guy out of the way, as is recommended in the pattern, is I got a bunch of sandwich bags and I wrote the letter of the color on the sandwich bag. There's A, C, and so I can put this down, and when I want, when I need a specific color, I know what color it is. It's already in the bag. The other thing I did, which you don't have to do, but I find it easier, I pulled out the start of the specific color. And I have it right into the little Ziploc because, again, sometimes when you stuff one of these in a bag, it's kind of hard to find the beginning. And so I did this when I was preparing my yarn. And that way, when I'm ready to grab the next color, it's sitting right there waiting for me. So I'm going to set these aside for now. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the cast on. So we at Yarn Inspirations, we like to use the knitted or knitted on cast on, depending on what you like to call it. And again, I have a little hat that's already started, but I'm going to go over this cast on very briefly. Just grab some yarn here. So to do my knitted or knitted on cast on, the first thing I'm going to do is make a loop. Now, normally I tell you guys 4 to 6 inches from the end, so you have stuff to weave in. But because we're going to go in and sew this brim closed, this pattern recommends that you make your slip knot 36 inches in from the end. Now, am I going to sit here and measure that? No, that's crazy. I like to so I'll hold the yarn in my fingers, I'll extend my arm all the way out, and then 36 inches for me is about where my collarbone is. So I'm going to just pull out a yard of yarn. You don't have to sit and measure every inch of it. So I'm going to have my loop. Here's my loop with a twist in it. So the side that's on top is the cut end, which we call the tail yarn. The side on the bottom is the yarn that's attached to the ogo. That is the working yarn. I'm going to bring my fingers from the back through the loop, grab that working yarn and pull it up and give it just a little tug. There's my slip knot. If you make a mistake, one of the reasons we call it a slip knot is it slips right out. So we're going to do that one more time. Let's get our fold of yarn. We'll make a twisted loop, tail on top, working yarn on the bottom, come through the back and grab the working yarn, give it a little tug, and put that on your knitting needle. Now you're going to give a gentle tug onto both sides, both the working yarn and the tail yarn, to get that to snug up onto the knitting needle, not too tight. And we're going to do the knitted or knitted on cast on. So to do that, we're going to act just like we're knitting a stitch. So we're inserting that needle through the front leg or loop of the stitch, yarn over and bring it through. Only instead of pushing the stitch off the left-hand needle like we would if we were making a knit stitch, I'm going to take this loop that I just pulled through, give it a little twist, and put it on the left-hand needle and give that a little tug. Not a super tight tug. You don't want to cast on super tight or you're not going to be able to knit later. So once again, as if to knit, I'm going to insert my right hand needle, yarn over and pull that through. Take that loop that I just made, give it a little twist, and put it on my left hand needle. So now I have 3. That slip knot does count as the first stitch. The other thing you'll notice, if you can see my thumb on my left hand, I have it between the stitches I've made and the new stitch. And again, it's more of a habit. It's not something that you absolutely must do. The cast on police are not going to come and get you. But I want to make sure that my stitches are not so close together that that cast on edge pulls when I am knitting my first row. I don't want it to be too tight. The other thing I want to point out for casting on for any project, no matter what cast on you're using, you want to make sure that your loop gets up to the fattest part of the knitting needle, not down here on the skinny part. Because again, if you work too close to the point, it's going to be super tight and not comfortable to work in later. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to cast on 84 stitches. Now, my little hat that I'm working on in camera is smaller, just so you don't have to watch me knit 84 stitches for every round. So once I have my 84 stitches on there, it tells you to set up to knit in the round. So here's all the stitches that I made. You want to make sure that there's no twist. You want to make sure that that ridge is all facing the same way. You don't want to twist in there, because if you have a twist in there, you're making a Mobius, not a hat brim. And then you'll just go ahead and knit in the round, and it's reminding you to place a marker on your first stitch. So let's take a look at the one I started earlier. Oh, one last thing I wanted to point out. Normally, again, you would not have this giant piece of yarn hanging out at the beginning. You'd have a piece that was 4 to 6 inches, and it was unlikely to get in your way. What I like to do is make we call them butterfly bobbins, and they're great if you have to use yarn like this later, but it's also a great way to keep yarn out of your way. So I have my index finger and my middle finger spread 2 inches apart, and I'm making figure 8s. This is a great way to keep the yarn out of the way without tangling it all up. And then when I get to the point where it can just hang down neatly, I'm going to make a loop, insert it halfway into the loop, give that a little tug. So now that's out of my way. You do not have to do that. It's just a little tip to make your knitting more enjoyable. If you are a knitter who enjoys working with bobbins, you could also put that on a bobbin. So you can see here's where I did it on my hat that I was working on off camera. So let me grab my instructions again. So you're going to do your cast on with color E, and you're going to cast on your 84 stitches, leaving your 36-inch or 91.5 centimeter long end, which we're going to use later. Join in round, being careful not to twist. We talked about that. And place marker on the first stitch. Now I used where is it? There it is. I used a locking stitch marker, and I marked the first stitch. Now I did not stop and move that stitch marker up every single round because we don't need to be that aggressive about it. But every couple of rounds I move it up just to make sure that I know where I'm going. So it tells me that I'm going to knit 12 rounds. So you may know this, but if you're a brand new beginner, if you're knitting in rows and you want stocking or stockinette stitch, you're going to knit 1 row and then purl 1 row. But knitting in the round, as we're doing here, to get stocking or stockinette stitch, all you have to do is knit. There's no purling for stockinette stitch when you're working in the round. So this is probably my 7th round. Again, yours will be bigger. I'm just trying to make something small enough that we can progress through the steps that I want to show you today. Do we have any questions while I'm getting up to my marker?
Yeah, it's a little quiet, so we're just observing. We're just
So
absorbing.
knit faster is what you're telling me.
Knit at your own pace. We are enjoying it. This is ASMR okay. For the eyes.
Well, if I would stop talking, you could hear my needles click, but you know.
Perfect.
All right, so we're going to pretend that this is the end of my 12th round. Like I said, it's probably my 7th, but I'm not knitting a complete hat today on camera. So I know that this is the last stitch of my round because there is my marked column of stitches. Once again, I could move that marker up if I wanted to, but you know, doing it every couple of rounds is fine. You don't have to do it every single time. Now it says the next round is a fold line and we're going to purl. So to do that, I'm bringing my yarn back to the front of the work. Make sure you're bringing it between the needles, not over the needle. If you go over the needle, you're going to make a stitch that you don't want. Now remember, for purling, we're inserting right to left in the front of the stitch, yarning over from the top down, pull it through, push the old stitch off. So this is purling. So we're going to go through here, yarn over, pull it through here, yarn over, pull it through. Now, if I'm correct, I think this is all the purling there is in this particular project, and you'll see why we do it in a couple of minutes. I'll show you why. It makes the brim have a really neat edging, and then this is a sewn brim. A lot of basic beginner hats have a ribbed brim, but this is a sewn brim. So having this one round of purl stitches is going to help me later. So I'm just going to finish this purl round, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do next. I guess I should have made a tinier hat.
Mary Beth, we had a stream of questions come in after our last break. Do you have a moment?
I do. Now is a really good time.
Wonderful. So Sophia is asking, how does it connect to complete the loop?
I will show you a little more closer when I get to it. I'm almost there. Again, I literally just hold my knitting needles in a circle, make sure there's no twists in those stitches. My working yarn is on this side, provided you're right-handed, because that is the last stitch that I cast on. And then I'm going to take that, my working yarn would be in the back for the knit. I'm just going to go ahead and knit the first stitch I cast on. Now there's going to be a tiny little jog, which I will show you when we get there. And I'm going to clean that up when I weave my ends in and sew my brim in. I can handle that with the tapestry needle. So the fact that it does not make a perfect join is not a big deal. And that happens when you knit in the round. It's never perfect. And I'm taking my good old time today. I do want to talk about jogless joins, but we'll see. We'll see if we get there.
Perfect. And I'm just going to do one quick one, and then I will let you get back to your wonderful work. Luann asked, does the cast on line count as row 1?
Not for a knitted or knitted on cast on. As you proceed in your knitting adventure, there are some types of cast ons that count as a row or a round. For example, we here at Yarn Inspirations like the knitted or knitted on cast on, but my personal favorite is the long tail cast on. And the long tail cast on does count as the first row or round, but the knitted on cast on does not. So that is, it's a little more advanced thought, and it will come up as you progress in your knitting adventure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now, the next thing that this instruction tells, oh wait, Renee, did you have any more?
The rest, I think I'm just going to bundle in links. You go ahead. I will bug you with another bundle of questions in a few minutes.
Okay, cool. I'm going to look for my bee color, which I threw on the floor without thinking. Now, the instructions for the hat tell you to knit 2 more rounds and then change to B, which I just found. Hallelujah. But I'm going to go ahead and change colors now because, again, there's things I want to talk about. So again, don't panic that I am not exactly following the pattern at this point. I just want to get to the point on this little sample that I can show you all the things that I personally want to show you. So how, again, following along with the pattern, you would knit 2 more rounds in the color that you started with. That's not A, that's E. But I'm going to change color now just so I can get a couple of color changes on the books. So to start my new color, I do not like to tie knots. You can tie an overhand knot and untie it later. I don't like to do that. Oh wait, goodness, I'm scattered today. Before we go too far, see that itty little V right there? That's where the round join is. So if this was a round join that was going to show, and I had my little short tail right here, when I did my end weaving in, I would just catch that with the tapestry needle and go back, and that would close up that little join. I may do that when I put this hat together, but I also may not, because this is going to roll to the inside of the hat and nobody's going to see it. But that's that little divot that I was talking about when you start your first complete round for the previous question. So to add my new color, I don't like to tie knots or anything like that. I'm just going to pull up a fold of the yarn 4 to 6 inches in from the end, and I'm going to knit with it. I believe, yes, it tells me I can break E. So to do that, again, I'm going to cut it 4 to 6 inches from the end. Now, the reason I keep hammering on about 4 to 6 inches is you want to be able to have enough yarn to comfortably weave your ends in color work. A lot of beginner knitters that I work with cut their tails super short. And then what happens when you need to weave that end in, it's tedious because you don't have enough room to work. So I'd always rather have my tail be a little bit too long. I can cut it back later, than be too short. And then it's problematic when I'm trying to do my weaving in. So My last stitch was a purl stitch. Again, you're going to go 2 rounds in the same color. I just happen to be changing my colors right now. So I'm going to pull up that fold, and I'm switching back to knit now. And I'm going to knit that first stitch with that fold. Make sure my tail's hanging in the back. And I'm going to go ahead and just start. Now, again, if I'm simply looking at this piece of knitting where the new colors come in, it's going to look a little loose, a little sloppy, but I'm going to tighten that up when I weave that end in, and it will look amazing. And I'm going to talk about a technique. It's not in the pattern, but I think it's cool, and I think it's not that hard to learn, and I think it makes striped items look so much cooler, and it's called the Jogless join. So here is some knitting technique, and if those of you who are not interested in fabric construction can just sort of zone out while I finish my next 2 rounds. But for those of you who are interested in this sort of thing, and if you take classes with me a lot here at Michael, I do tend to go on about fabric construction, but it interests me. So when you are knitting in the round, now think about this for a minute, you are essentially knitting a spiral. The reason that we have to mark the beginning or the end of the round is because you can't see it. If you're crocheting, and you do like a turning chain, you can see the beginning or the end of the round. But if you're working in the round without any kind of differentiation in stitch, you're essentially making a giant spiral. If you knit a tube sock, it could have 900 yards of yarn in it, but you started at one end, you ended at the other end, and you have knit a giant spiral because of the way the stitches stack up on top of each other. So what happens when you change colors, like we're doing here, or do stripes, you get what is called a jog. When you get to the part where the last stitch in the round lines up next to the first stitch in the round, they are not going to be perfectly level. And that is because you're making a spiral. It's the same idea as that little divot that I showed you, because the stitches don't line up absolutely perfectly when you're knitting in the round. So there's something called a jogless join, which we're going to do, which is why I'm knitting as fast as I possibly can. And it happens on the second row of the new color. So you knit your first round of your new color just the way you always would. So that's what we've done. And now we're moving on. Wait, I have to think for a minute. We're moving on to the second round. When I'm working on the second round, I'm going to take the old color. I'm going to pop it up onto the needle with the new color, and I'm going to knit those two together. I'm only going to do it one time. This is not something that happens on every round. Now I'm going to go ahead and move up my marker because I think it's time. I want to make sure that I know what I'm doing. And now I'm going to go ahead and keep knitting. So this is not something you have to do on every round in the new color. You only have to do it when you are adding a new color. And just for future reference for other patterns, this technique only works on stripes that contain 2 rounds or more. If you're doing a pattern that has a stripe on every round, you're going to let it jog and you're going to learn to live with it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this second round, and then we'll take a look at what I mean. How are we doing, Renee? Any questions?
It's all right, good so far. Just going through, giving a quick scan. We did answer that. Belinda said, I did not know the long tail cast on equals the first row. So we're all learning things today.
A lot of people do not. And then they get confused when they're counting rows and it doesn't look right. It is amazing to me how many even really, really experienced knitters did not know that long tail counts as the first row, but it does.
Awesome. So I'm just going to close off with one quick question. So the question is, what is the reason for grabbing that bottom color to the new color?
It is to prevent the jog, and I'm going to show you more closely when we get there. And
Awesome.
we're almost there. I'm knitting as fast as I can, people.
You're doing great. You're doing amazing, sweetie.
Renee and I have too much fun on these classes. I actually, just a funny story while I'm finishing the round, my daughter did pageants for a brief and shining moment. And she and her best pageant buddy got t-shirts that said, "You're doing awesome. So you're doing amazing, sweetie." So they both have t-shirts that they wore to each other's pageants that said, "You're doing amazing, sweetie." This is
Now
when
we
they
have
were
to have them for
23.
this class.
This is when they were 23. You know what I mean? This was not, and it amused me greatly.
Love it.
Okay, we're almost there. We're almost there. We're almost there.
While you're working, Jeannie Marie, I see your hand is up. If you have a question, if you can type it into the chat, I can ask Mary Beth. Nope. Perfect.
Okay, so the reason we picked up that, okay, so first off, here's the sloppy stitch that I was talking about. You see how sloppy that looks? And it's just because that's a cut end. So when I weave in that end, I'm just going to give it a little tug and it will neaten up. Now, let's see how close I can get before it doesn't want to focus anymore. The reason I picked up that color, and if you look right over my thumb, you can see it, is so the stitches line up in the color. When I look at this stripe, it's going to look almost perfect all the way across. If I had not done that, if I had not done the jogless join technique, and I had just kept knitting, 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 what would have happened was on that round, that first round, you would have a purple stitch next to a gray stitch. So when you're looking at the line, it goes like this, and then it jogs. And all the jogs would line up on one side. And is it the end of the world? It is not. But a lot of people don't like the jogs, and I'm one of those people. So that one time at the beginning of the second row in the new color, if you pull that loop up, it minimizes the jog to the point where you'd have to really be staring at it to see it. It's just one of those itty tiny little details that make your knitting that much better. Do we have any more questions? Because I'm going to start talking about decreases.
Yes, so Jeannie, who just had her hand up, said, my join in the round is too long. What did I do wrong? Oh, someone's
Answering it.
Thank you, iPad Pro.
Okay, let me just see if I can get it. You want to grab the right hand side of the stitch under the one you're going to knit. It's possible that you are grabbing too far down. Alternatively, it could have pulled a little bit just because of where the color change was. So again, like I just showed you, if it looks loose and sloppy like that, and you tug on a tail and it closes itself up like that just did, then that's something you're going to fix when you're weaving in your ends, right? If it's something else, it's kind of hard for me to visualize what you mean. But you want to make sure you're grabbing the guy just exactly below and to the right of the stitch you're going to knit in. Yeah? I'm looking at my time. Okay. So let's talk about, let's see. Yeah, I have a lot of technique I want to push through on this. So we're going to talk about decreasing. So you're going to follow the stripe pattern the way it's written in the pattern. So we did our purl round, we did 2 rounds of E, then 12B, 12C, 12D, and 3A. So you're going to follow along with the instructions exactly the way they're written. Again, I'm not going to sit here and knit a whole hat, or we're not going to get to do anything else before our class time is up. So we're going to do the shape where it says shape crown, and it says note, switch to set of 4 needles when necessary during shaping. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So it says asterisk, knit 2 together, knit 10, SSK. So let's talk about those. So the first thing we're going to do is knit 2 together. Now that's a super easy one. You're literally going to knit 2 stitches as if they are one. So there's my knit 2 together. I inserted my right hand needle tip through both stitches. I'm going to yarn over and pull through both at the same time. So that was my knit 2 together. Now it says knit 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then it says SSK. SSK is another decrease. It stands for slip, slip, knit. So I'm going to slip the first stitch. Let's see, I have to check. Some people will tell you knitwise and some purlwise. Okay, Yarn Inspiration says knitwise. So I'm going to slip, so I'm going to act like I'm going to first knit that first stitch, but I'm not going to knit it. I'm just passing it over to the other needle. So there's 1, and I'm going to do that again. There's 2. Now I'm putting them back onto the left-hand needle. And then I'm going to knit them together through the back loops. So we normally knit in the front loops, but we're going to knit in the back loops. So I'm sticking my needle into the center of those stitches. I'm grabbing 2 at once and completing my stitch. So why don't we just SSK all the time? Or why don't we just K2 tog, knit 2 together all the time? That's because 1 is a right leaning decrease and 1 is a left leaning decrease. So it's not just the number of stitches that we're decreasing, it is also what they look like. So that was my repeat, and it says go back to the asterisk, right? Repeat from asterisk around. So we're doing again, knit 2 together. Right? So that is my right leaning decrease. The decrease leans to the right because that is a knit 2 together, and knit 2 together is always a right leaning decrease. Then I'm going to knit 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're going to SSK, that's slip, slip, knit. Don't slip them both together. They don't lay as flat. I know that seems weird, but just trust me on this one. Slip 1, slip 2, put them back on the left-hand needle, knit 2 together through the back loop. See, and there is my left leaning decrease. That decrease leans to the left. So when you look, we call these paired decreases in knitting. It's when 2 decreases sit next to each other. And you will often find one is right leaning and one is left leaning because it makes a cute little seam. I don't think I'm going to get enough rounds on that you can see what I'm talking about. But when you knit this hat, it looks very tailored. Oops, sorry, I should have had another SSK in there. Can't talk and knit at the same time. Hang on. So I'm going back to the asterisk again. Knit 2 together. There we go. Knit 10, SSK. And I'm going to do that all the way around. Now here's another little tip for SSK once you're feeling cocky and you feel like you know what you're doing. So slip 1, slip the next one, put them back on your left-hand needle. That's what we've been doing, but don't take your right-hand needle out, just angle it towards the back. It's one less step and you get the same look. So instead of taking my needle out and putting it back in, after I've slipped them, I'm just going to leave my right-hand needle in. All right, I think I have enough stitches for one more repeat. Let's see. Knit 2 together, knit 10, SSK. Oops. No, I'm good. Slip, slip, put them back on the left-hand needle, knit 2 together through the back loop. Now your repeat is going to end with that SSK. So again, all the way around, you're going to have your knit 2 togs and your SSKs are going to be right next to each other. I have a couple of extra stitches because apparently I couldn't count this morning when I cast on my little swatch. So don't worry about that. You are going to end with that SSK. The last thing that you guys have is going to be an SSK. So now second and alternate rows knit. So in that case, I'm just going to knit around. Then my next decrease is going to be SSK, knit 8, knit 2 together. So I'm going to, again, for the sake of this class, I'm going to skip the knit around round and I'm going to do another decrease round. So in this case, it's SSK, slip, slip, knit, knit 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, I'm going to say this and you guys can edit it out later if you want to. I think that that is a typo. I think that all of the rounds need to start with knit 2 together and end with SSK. I think the third round has a typo in it, and I am going to run that by tech support when I get off of this class. So if you're watching this at a later date, the pattern should be corrected. If you are watching it live, I'm going to see about getting that pattern updated because I strongly believe that that is a typo. I think it should be knit 2 together, knit 8, SSK, because if you look at the subsequent rounds, let's take a look at the pattern. So if you look at it, it's knit 2 together, knit 10, SSK, knit around. This is the round that I just read that I think is incorrect. But if you look, all the other decrease rounds are knit 2 together, knit 6, knit 2 together, knit 4, knit 2 together, knit 2, etc., knit 2 together, SSK. So I believe that those two decreases should be flipped. So what's going to happen with each subsequent round that you have, and now notice it says not just second, but also alternate rounds. So you're going to go decrease round, knit around, decrease round, knit around, decrease. Now, do you see what I'm doing? You're going to have those work even rounds in between your decrease rounds. And then when you're done, you're going to be down to 12 stitches. So I'm going to ask Renee if we have any questions, and I'm going to just throw some random decreases in here to get a smaller circumference. I want to talk about the words that I cannot say. I want to talk about switching to the double pointed needles.
No worries. Questions are good so far. Some folks were asking about the Jogless join. I just popped a link in there. Perhaps maybe that's a resource we can put together at some point, whether it's a web page or a video.
We might have one.
Yeah, I'll keep looking.
I feel fairly certain that we have one on the Yarnspirations website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Again, if you guys do not want to do the Jogless join, don't. You know what I mean? I didn't mean to make it scary. I just thought
they're curious. I think they're excited.
I just thought it would be a fun technique to learn. But you don't have to do a Jogless join. The worst thing that will happen is there'll be a slight visual hiccup in the luscious horizon of your stripes. But if you don't do a jogless join, the knitting police will not come and get you. I promise. I might haunt your dreams, but you know, the knitting police will not come and get you. And again, right now, what I'm just doing is putting some random decreases in because I want to have a smaller circumference because I want to talk about switching to the DPNs. But I'm being pretty random about it because I'm answering questions and knitting and talking and thinking about typos all at the same time.
You know what? There's a lot of variety in the classes. It's great. But I think what's great about these classes is you can kind of pull out the specific techniques that, you know, people will find valuable. We're not always necessarily following a pattern verbatim, but you can pull out the really important and exciting stitches and skills out of it. And then, you know, they can spend a little bit more time working on it solo afterwards.
That's true. I actually think this is a really great pattern on which to learn because, again, it amuses me. A lot of people do not enjoy purling, which surprises me. But if you are one of those people that does not enjoy purling, this is the pattern for you because there's only one round of it. Okay, do we have anything else going before I switch to the double point?
I'm just going to pop in one question and then go for it. So the question is, are you going to change to double pointed needle?
I am. I'm just about to.
Just about to. Okay.
Here they are.
There they are.
Here they are. So let's talk about double pointed needles for a moment, which I love double pointed needles. I grew up knitting socks on double pointed needles. This is another one of those things. They're not hard, but they frighten people. Let's talk about them and why you might want them and when you might want them. So, of course, now they want to roll off the table. This is a 16-inch knitting needle, which is exactly what we called for. As you progress in your decrease rounds, and it's going to take you a couple decrease rounds to get to the point where you have to worry about it, your work is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, which is what we want. When it's far smaller than 16 inches, I suddenly have a lot of knitting needle. And if I want to continue to knit on the round on my circular needle, I'm like yanking this all out of shape because there's not enough stitches to go around the whole 16-inch length. And that's great. That's what we want. We want it to be closing up so we have a nice, neat top. So the point of double pointed needles is so that you can knit a circle regardless of how small the circumference gets. Let me say that again. The point of a double pointed needle when setting up on double pointed needles is that you can knit in the round, knit circles, and it does not matter how small the circumference is going to get. I could have one stitch on each of these 3 needles, and that's going to close it up. So instead of fighting with a circular needle, once you have a certain number of stitches on your needle, it's easier to switch to the DPNs. Now, if you are an experienced knitter and you like to do magic loop, knock yourself out, but we're not talking about that today. That's not a technique that we're teaching in this particular class. That is more intermediate advanced. Again, if you happen to be watching this video with somebody and you are already a magic loop knitter and you want a magic loop, go to town. But DPNs are really the easiest way to do it. But again, they scare people for some reason. So the other reason we don't tell you very specifically when exactly to change to double pointed needles, the reason we don't say, you know, on the 5th round or on the 7th round is because your individual gauge might be a little different. What you're comfortable working with might be a little different. When you get to the point that you can't knit comfortably in the round anymore, you're going to switch to the double pointed needles. Now, the DPNs are the same size as the needle that we're knitting our hat with. So what I like to do is just divide it up into however many stitches I have. When it gets to be too tight, I'm going to divide that into 3, and I'm going to put 3 on each of my double pointed needles and use the 4th one to knit. Now, do I have to take it off the circular needle and put it on the double pointed needle? I can, but I don't have to. I can also just, you know, knit off of the circular onto the DPN. So again, I'm just being sort of random here with my counting and my decreases, just to, because I just want to make a point about how this works. You know what I mean? But now, if you're new to knitting with double pointed needles, I highly recommend you get in the habit when you start a new needle, when you start knitting on a new needle, you give that stitch an extra little tug, because when you're, again, learning to handle double pointed needles, sometimes you will have a loose stitch at the beginning of your needle and it doesn't look as nice as the other stitches. We call that laddering, because you can see those stitches are a little loose and they make a little section that looks like the rung of a ladder. So that's called laddering. And you can solve a lot of that problem by, when you do your first stitch on your needle, just giving it a little extra tug, be a little more aggressive with pulling up that working yarn. And I'm talking about when you're switching from one needle to the next, to prevent laddering. If you just tend to go along at your own pace, sometimes you get that little ladder. It's, again, no knitting police. It's not the end of the world, but it's not the most attractive look always. So you can see I'm knitting right off. I'm knitting off of my circular onto my DPNs as I go, and I'm being sloppy about it. But again, say I decided I wanted to do it when I had 60 stitches left, right? Because I'm decreasing 8. What am I decreasing? No, I'm decreasing 12 on every round. So I would make it so that I had 20 on each one. You want your stitches pretty evenly distributed. Again, I'm just being a little goofy. Let's do that SSK again, just out of interest. I'm just being a little goofy because I don't have time to knit a whole hat.
This is a goofy safe zone. Go for it.
And you can see when I put them down, I want to make sure that my stitches are in the middle of the work. I don't want them to pull out. Now, there are little rubber point protectors that you can get at Michael's, and you can pop those on the ends of your DPNs to make sure your stitches don't fall off. But I don't like them. I think it slows me down. And but you can definitely use them, particularly if you're new to DPNs. They're cool to have. It's a nice little tool that you can have. And they're also good to have when some of us knit for 10 hours a day, but some of us do not. So if you're putting your work down and you're in the decrease section, it's nice to have those little rubber point protectors to make sure the stitches don't pop off the needle when you aren't looking. Okay, so now I'm through with my circular. I'm done with it. I'm just going to put that aside. So here is what is going on here? Oh, I see what happened. Just have my working yarn in the wrong place. So here I am. I'm set up on my 3 double pointed needles. I have my 4th needle that I'm going to knit with, and I can knit. Now this is the time when I want to start moving my start of round marker up pretty frequently. If you're knitting on a circular needle, you can use a ring stitch marker instead of a locking one, because it will hang out in between stitches. But when you're using double pointed needles, it's really good to mark a stitch and not a needle, because of course the needles move as you jump around. So this is the one I was knitting with. This was a setup needle, but now as I finish this needle, the one I was knitting with is now part of the setup, and the one that was the setup is now the one I'm knitting with. So you can't mark the needle, you must mark the stitch when you're knitting in the round like this. But you can see I'm getting less and less stitches on every round, but I can still make a nice tight circle because the double points give me more flexibility. Whoops. I am looking at our time and we are running out. So what have we got in the way of questions, if any?
Mostly just positive commentary.
Oh, good.
Someone said, nice to see how you transfer from the circular needles to the double pointed. Thank you for the tip to tighten the loose stitch on the double pointed needles. So we're all learning stuff. We're all happy.
Oh, good. Okay.
And sorry, there was one actual question. Dee Dee said, sorry, I missed this. And you can knit the whole hat or DPN to begin with and not worry about changing the needle at the decrease?
You can. Here's why I do not personally. So a double pointed needle is, I want to say it's usually like 8 inches long. And if I'm using a set of 4, so that gives me 3 for setup and 1 to knit with. And say, for example, the circumference of my hat is going to be, I didn't do the math, but I'm knitting an adult hat and the circumference of my hat is going to be, say, 22 inches. That's going to take up a lot of the width of those DPNs. The likelihood of you dropping a stitch off the end is very high. So I do not switch to the DPNs until my circumference is under, well, my own personal preference, I like it to be under 18 inches, which gives me 6 inches in the center of the needle and 1 inch on either side to play with. You do not want to be trying to squish a whole bunch of stitches on the double pointing needle, because you're going to put it down to answer the phone and they're going to off the end and you will be unhappy. So I do not knit large circumference items like hats on double pointed needles. Could I? Yes, I could. Do I personally do it? No, I do not. Socks, however, I knit socks on double pointed needles from start to finish. I never use those teeny tiny circulars. I don't like them. So yeah, you could in fact knit an entire thing on the round. And in the bad old days, we did, you know, you knit a lot of things, but you would have a set, you would have 5 double pointed needles instead of 4. You'd have 4 for setup and 1 to knit with, you know what I mean? Because the sheer amount of tools that you guys can buy at Michael's is staggering. You used to not be able to go and, you know, find a 16-inch, you know, circulars in 16-inch and 29-inch and 36-inch and 47. You know, we didn't have interchangeable needle sets except the boy set. You had to get the little screw thing out and the little rubber grip and all that kind of thing. The amount of tools that we have available today as knitters is sort of staggering. So 2 things I want to point out, and then I will stop babbling. When you get down to 12 stitches, so you'll have 4 stitches on each place, you're going to break your yarn, leaving a long end. You're going to thread that end through your yarn needle, which does not want to come out of the package today because I'm trying to rush. Nate, I'm going to go 2 minutes over. Don't punch me, please.
You're fine.
And then, so again, I would only have 12. So I'm going to take this tail and I'm going to go right through all the stitches, and I'm going to take them off the knitting needle as I go. Just pull that right through. Again, you'll have fewer. I will also say this, talking about the DPNs, I considered knitting a smaller hat so I could do the math more correctly. But the last time I did that here in Michael's, I did use DPNs from the very beginning because I made like a little teddy bear hat. It started out at a 12-inch circumference and it really threw people. They were very concerned that they would not be able to use a circular, which a lot of people prefer. So that is why I did not do that today, because the last time I tried it, it aggravated people. I can get rid of this now. That's my lacking stitch marker. I don't need it anymore. So again, you'd only have 12. I had closer to 20, but you've threaded it all through and you've taken them off the needles at the same time. And you're going to pull that up until that circle closes. Bring the needle to the wrong side of the work. And fasten off that end. And what I like to do is just to go through those live stitches a couple times. I'll go through 2 or 3. I'll back stitch. I'll pick up one I already went through. I'll go through 2 or 3 more. This is more of an art than a science, but you really want to make sure that this is well knotted because there's a little bit of pressure on this. And of course you want to make sure that your yarn needle is not going through to the right side of the work because you don't want it to show, but you can see I have my finger there to prevent that from happening. When I feel pretty good about that, I can weave in my end a little bit. Again, I would weave it in longer and more neatly, but there's one more thing I want to show you before we go. And for this hat, like I said earlier, it does not have a ribbed brim. It has a seamed brim. So the reason we have the pearl round is this. This is going to fold right up. And I'm going to take that super long tail that I had. I'm going to untwist my little butterfly here. And I'm going to take that cut end, thread it through my tapestry needle or my yarn needle. And I'm going to fold, I'm going to let it fold naturally. I'm going to let it fold on that pearl round. It's going to fold all by itself. That's where it wants to fold. And it's going to make that cute little edging right there. And then I'm just going to go all the way around and sew it to some of those plain rounds that you're going to do following along with pattern that I didn't do because we didn't have time. But I'm just going to go ahead and sew that down. Once again, you want to make sure that you're catching the wrong side only of the work. You don't want to see that stitching on the right side of the work. And you want to make sure that you're going under 2 loops on the edge because you want it to be nice and sturdy. Make sure you're not pulling it too tight or it's going to be hard to get on your head. Make sure that it has the least little bit of stretch in it and you don't want your sewing to come through to the right side. But again, your hat will be straight for a long time. So you're going to fold this up. I recommend getting a couple of straight pins and just pinning it to make sure that nothing is twisted or crooked. But even if you don't want to go through all that, it's going to lay out pretty nice out of habit because you have the same number of stitches going up. The reason, of course, it's not doing it to me is because I'm trying to sew the cast on edge to a decrease round, which you will not be doing. You will be sewing where it's nice and straight. But again, you're going to just stitch all the way around and then you get this luscious thick brim that keeps the hat on your head with this cute little edging. And but it's not ribbed. It's just a different look. I really like it. And it's super sturdy and it's super warm because it's 2 layers right there. Okay, I'm done. Hallelujah. 201. Renee, do we have any questions before we release everybody from knitting jail?
I think we're good. I just want to say quickly, someone had asked if there's someone available to help if they run into trouble at Michael's One. There are tons of Facebook groups. We have some, Michael's has some. Definitely go check through Facebook and you will find a whole community of people making the same things. And so, you know, sometimes the community answers questions faster than we can because y'all are so great.
And if you want to find me on Instagram, I'm hooked, HOOKED, the number 4, life, LIFE LLC. That's Hooked for Life LLC. And my Instagram is monitored. I appreciate a follow before you ask me a question, but I'll answer your question anyway.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. Go bug Mary Beth if you have questions. That was your invitation. Okay, everyone, I'm going to wrap up. Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to share your work with #MakeItWithMichaels and #YarnSpo. That's YARNSPO. And just a reminder that you can find more classes on michaels.com and a recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. Thank you, Nate and Mary Beth. It was so lovely to see you both. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thanks for coming. Bye-bye.
Bye.